Murdoc Alphonse Nichols stood shaking at the side of the stage. As the line before him grew ever shorter, he knew that the inevitable moment of reckoning was rapidly approaching. He would have done anything to escape this humiliation. However, the only thing he feared more was the wrath of his sadistic father, stood yards behind him, ensuring that the child completed the agreed performance. Money had changed hands, and the deal had to be honored. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a warm-hearted welcome to little Murdoc Nichols as the small wooden boy Pinocchio singing, "I've Got No Strings." A muted round of applause rippled around the pub. There was a moment's silence. Murdoc stood rooted to the spot, resplendent in lederhosen, strap-on nose, and feathered alpine hat, his knees knocking together like a couple of castanets. As the delay continued, the audience started shifting in their seats. A booming voice from the back of the hall broke out, "Go on, get over it, my beer's getting cold." His father's thick leathery boot connected hard with Murdoc's backside, hurtling the young child onto the stage. "Start singing, you little son, or I'll smash your teeth in." The bright blinding light shone straight into his eyes as the smell of warm beer, stale cigarettes, and cheap aftershave wafted across the pub. The music started up, and as Murdoc looked to the side, his eyes imploring to be spared this dignity-stripping ritual, his father growled his decision nice and clearly. The local Are You a Star talent contest was the bane of Murdoc's life. Each month the local pub would hold this type of demeaning event. Talentless clods would enter, impersonating the big names of the day, gurning their way through soul-sapping performance after mindless performance. Murdoc swore from this moment on never again would he take to the stage under someone else's direction. He would wreak his revenge on this world of buffoons. You could say that was the day that Gorillaz was really born, he says now, from that seed of rejection, a rejection of all that kind of rubbish. Murdoc Nichols was born in the stinking borough of Stoke-on-Trent on June the 6th, 1966. The exact whereabouts have never been verified, but it was rumoured that Murdoc's mother gave birth to him while still in residence at the Belphegor Sanatorium, a halfway house for the sick, the needy, and the incredibly bored. Whatever the truth behind this is, the infant Murdoc was found abandoned upon the doorstep of his nefarious father's house. His father, Sebastian Jacob Nichols, or Jacob Sebastian Nichols, depending on who's asking, was a notorious booze-hound, a gambler, womanizer, and ne'er-do-well, a man whose collection of dubious vices would put Bill Sykes to shame. He was thought to have squired a number of children in the area, and had spent most of his ragged life avoiding any form of work one way or another. Auspiciously, upon his return from the pub that fateful night, a filthy black raven stood perched upon Murdoc's swaddling, which should have given Sebastian at least some clue as to the alignment of the contents held within. Sebastian shooed away the oily, coughing creature and took this mopped-up bundle inside. One can only imagine the disappointment on his sozzled face when he unwrapped the surprise package. From the age of 7, Murdoc attended Sodsworth Comprehensive School, although from the first day he could frequently be found in the corridors during lessons. His form teacher, Mr. Graveldax, remembers Murdoc with a great deal of warmth as a scruffy, lovable attendee of the Sodsworth School. By the age of 13, Murdoc had a notable reputation around Sodsworth, namely for truancy, puerile pranks, ugliness, poor personal hygiene, and generally unruly behaviour. Despite all this, he was also the target of much bullying, both from the pupils and the teachers. One boy in particular, Tony Chopper, a big, thick, meaty skinhead lump with arms like 2 racks of kebab meat, took a pointed dislike to our boy. Pow! Toner's massive porky fist connected with Murdoc's face, shattering his nose and sending the young Nichols boy flying. Success at last! Murdoc had obviously hit a nerve in Chopper, his insults finally penetrating Chopper's thick, stupid hide deeply enough to reduce Tony to a blubbering mound of mindless thuggery. Despite the bloody nose, Murdoc knew he had him licked. That day, Murdoc skipped home merrily from school, the blood rolling down his broken, beaming face. He was on his way. Honing his ability to highlight people's shortcomings gave our intrepid Murdoc a newfound confidence. Most of Murdoc's subsequent teenage years were spent in a boastful riot of larceny, joyriding, animal baiting, fraud and arson, usually while knocking back bottles of Strongbow cider and shooting out the windows of houses with his air pistols. After a hard day's miscreant activity, Murdoc would then while away his evenings listening to records around his comrade's house. It was here that, amongst other things, he discovered the deep, dark, dulcet joys of Black Sabbath. The Brummy metal band were a second epiphany for Murdoch, shining a luminous beacon of light through the darkness. Murdoch began to imagine a golden future outside the festering, disease-ridden, bubonic hamlet that was Stoke-on-Trent. Black Sabbath's greatest hits collection, We Sold Our Soul for Rock and Roll, was key.
Oh, yeah.
He recalls.
That turned my head right inside out. Actually, they were another catalyst for my venture into the old Satanism game. Them, Aleister Crowley, Anton LaVey, and a very ingenious do-it-yourself Acme Satanist kit I bought at a jumble sale. But the very first thing, see, there was this bloke hanging around the Arndale Centre handing out leaflets, and I guess it was the whole riches on earth sort of sexual gluttony coupled with the opportunity for, alcoholic excess that first caught my eye. Aged 16, that's a very exciting proposition for a man on the move. So, as a look, I tried it out, and you know what? It fitted me like a glove. Heavy metal music and devil-worshipping became my favourite pastimes. My brother Hannibal's tastes were more dub and punk-based, but I soaked it all up. Actually, it was my love of the Clash that eventually opened up the world of dub reggae to me. But my first true love was always heavy metal. Lovely, thick, gooey black metal. I don't think my brother liked it at all, though.
Hannibal Nichols broke Murdoch's nose for a second and third time. The crime this occasion was for playing Dio's We Rock album on Hannibal's personal turntable.
He got me into a lot of good music,
he says of his brother.
He's inside now, though, for, I don't know, stealing hubcaps or something.
Not long after, Murdoch was pushed out of Sodsworth Comprehensive, leaving with only a single legitimate qualification, an international baccalaureate in antisocial anthropology. Murdoch explains,
I'd studied other cultures in quite minute detail. Their behavioural patterns, the way they communicate, and their cultural traditions, and I kind of took the piss out of it. I passed that exam with flying colours.
However, the hallowed halls of Stoke-upon-Trent Sixth Form College were never to beckon him further. As he recalls,
the combination of my devilish charms, my rapier wit, my love of music, all pointed me in the same direction. I decided, there and then, that I would spend my life as a star musician, sailing the high seas of Chianti, rocking and rolling around the world. I was a genie unleashed. Wit, charm, confidence, charisma became the weapons of my armoury, and I was unstoppable. To seal the deal, I began making negotiations with the big man below, if you get my drift. I knew I had what it takes to rule the airways, but it certainly doesn't hurt getting a little lift up from Beelzebub. So we came to an arrangement.
To mark that an agreement had been undertaken, Murdoch changed his middle name via deed poll from Alphonse to Faust. And in return, Murdoch took charge of Satan's own bass guitar, El Diablo.
Great sound, really twangy,
Murdoch says, explaining its unique appeal. The contract between the two obviously bounced between lawyers for some length, because although the path ahead was now clear, it would be some time before Murdoch Nichols drank from the cup of success. Throughout these years, Murdoch formed many bands with various lineups, none of which seemed to go anywhere. Among these was the terribly amateurish new romantic band Patchouli Clark, a sad, pointless mixture of vaguely gothic keyboards and Murdoch's strangled crow-like crooning. They were never signed. Years upon years passed of unsuccessful attempts to crack stardom. Kilson Makeup, Bullworker, Crimson Backdraft, Motley Dude, The Stupid Name Gang, Durango 95, Two's a Crowd. Oh, the list of shame goes on. If Murdoch was ever to really realize his dream and escape the dirty, filthy, rotting, garbage-filled, putrid cesspit of Stoke-on-Trent, he was going to have to take his master plan to another level. This meant recruiting a band worthy of his talents. "1-2-D3. In the suburbs, they're spooked."
Yeah, I was more into films than music back then.
2D remembers.
Like, Meantime, Scum, Made in Britain, you know what I mean? Plus I was a big fan of zombie flicks too. Like, I love Dawn of the Dead and Evil Dead and Zombie Flesh Eaters. I was well into Lucio Fulci, the godfather of gore. I really loved his film Zombie and The Gates of Hell too, you know. It was really, really scary. And George Romero's stuff was brilliant. I like Cronenberg's Rabid and The Brood. Abel Ferrara's Driller Killer was another really cool film. The Exorcist and Texas Chainsaw Massacre are both great. Well scary. Oh, and Cannibal Massacre too. But Dawn of the Dead is still probably my favourite. I don't know what it is, but it's just something about zombies. They just really creep me out. You know the way they move really slowly, but they always seem to get you in the end? Really freaks me out. But that's why I watch them, I guess. Yeah.
Stu Pott, or Stuart Pott to give him his full name, was born on the 23rd of May 1978, the son of David and Rachel Pott. Stuart was a polite, well-mannered boy with little to say for himself. Less charitable people could possibly describe the young Stu Pott as maybe a bit thick.
I know there's a rumour going round that my real name is Stuart Tusspot or something, but that's not true. It's Pott. Stuart Pott.
Actually, comments his father, my name was originally Tusspot, but having endured a lifetime of ridicule, I thought around the time of Stuart's birth that I would shorten it to Pott. Also, despite what Stu Pott says, music alongside films had always played a large part in his life. David and Rachel Pott both recall Stuart as an excitable 10-year-old, jumping around his bedroom to noisy backdrop of The Jam, The Specials, The Clash, Wire and Buzzcocks. Earlier compilation tapes reveal he was also a fan of Jason Donovan, Five Star, Shack Attack, and Stu's favourite artists, the Human League. He was also quite a keen melodica player, crafting simple but memorable melodies on his Hohner instrument in the style of his idol Augustus Pablo. When Stuart was 11 years old, he fell out of a tree, landing on his head, causing a complete and total loss of bodily hair. When it finally grew back, the natural colour was now a vibrant azure blue.
What?
Murdoch asks.
Collars and cuffs?
2D looks down awkwardly, scratching his head. His father David was a mechanic and all-round electronic tinkerer for fairground rides. Stuart's mother was a big-breasted nurse, and it was her who secured the endless supply of painkillers for the terrible migraines that Stuart suffered from. These attacks only got worse after the accident that was to fling Stuart and Murdoch's life together so forcefully in later years. Stuart Pott went to St. Wilfrid's School. Coincidentally, the same school that had educated the members of Spider-based indie gothfather group The Cure, where, despite a marked lack of ambition and apparent limited intellect, Stuart was able to achieve fairly good grades.
Well, you know what they say.
He reflects.
Little knowledge is a wonderful thing. Yeah. I hadn't really thought about what I wanted to do after school, though. I never really thought about anything as far as I can remember. I went for a period where I wanted to be a storm chaser and record loads of videos off the TV of, like, tornadoes and stuff. I like messing about with keyboards and bits of electronics. My dad used to help me customise bits of instruments so that I could make, like, new keyboard sounds and stuff. We used stylophones, Moogs, old drum machines, anything electronic that made a noise, really. I had this Casio VL tone that I thought was well crucial, right? It was just, I was just in there playing around, making bloopy noises, being a bit spacey. I was a bit into painting too, messing around with graffiti and stuff, you know. At one point, I guess I wanted to be a vandal like that bloke Banksy.
While back in Stoke, Murdoch had fallen in with many a shady individual, assembling a gang of villainous scoundrels and cronies, all sods to a man. Tired of the endless monotony of dead-end jobs and hopeless rehearsals, he decided to crank up the crime and put his master plan into action. August the 15th, 1997. D-Day.
New gear, new singer, new band. That's what I needed.
Murdoch recalls.
I had a bunch of great songs and demos, and I knew they could tear the charts apart, but I also knew that any song is only as good as the outfit playing them. So I set about assembling a killer band. They had to be the best or no dice. So I decided to put it together the easy way. Ram raid the shop, hijack the gear, smash our way into the charts. Grab the chicks and slay the dragon. Get it?
So it was while Stu was working as a Saturday boy at Uncle Norm's Organ Emporium, his and Murdoch's world collided. Top speed, in a very real way. Murdoch continued.
Me and my gang of snaggletooth hardnuts decided that was enough. What we'd do is nick a car, burn it around town, build up a bit of speed, and then launch it right through the music shop window, ram raid styley. Yeah? We could smash some stuff up, get all the latest equipment free, and have a laugh doing it. Yeah. The fact that the car landed on 2D's face, well, you know, the way I see it, that was just a bonus.
I remember the day quite clearly, actually. I was standing behind the counter, like, staring into space. I'd probably been in the position for 3 hours or so, just standing there.
Like,
Thought Murdoch.
Some kind of moron.
Murdoch comes smashing through the wall of the building in his Vauxhall Astra, which lands bumper first on the side of my head.
Happy days. That's when your eye came out, wasn't it?
Yeah, the first one, it didn't come out. It was pushed inward, fractured. God, that did hurt.
By driving a stolen Vauxhall Astra through the building and directly into Stewpot, Murdoch had permanently damaged Stewpot's left eye, also putting him into a deep catatonic state. Murdoch.
You were just a vegetable instantly. If I hadn't been laughing so much, I probably would have heard the cops pulling up outside.
Murdoch was arrested and sentenced to 30,000 hours of community service, plus 10 hours every week of caring for the vegetabilized Stewpot.
God bless the British justice system, eh? Unbelievable. They put me in charge of you. It was a bit of a drag, but we used to have a lot of fun during those sessions. You wouldn't remember that, though. You were just a comatose plank, really. Actually, now I think about it, it was like looking after a bag of cement.
Murdoch's care in the community service usually involved as much mistreatment of the deaf, dumb and blind Stuart Pott as Murdoch could squeeze into his appointed time slot. Kicking, slapping, punching, dragging, dunking, catapulting. Nothing seemed to affect the catatonic kid. Until one incident went a little bit too far.
We were in a car park in Nottingham. And I was pulling a whole load of very snazzy 360-degree donuts. I had a proper burn on. I was getting some good smoke off the tyres. The girls that were standing around, they were really impressed. So, I just thought I'd take it up a notch. Yeah. Took my foot off the brake and went for a grand finale. I was probably hitting about 90 when 2D got catapulted through the windscreen. He flew about 500 yards, landing face first on a curb. Whoops.
Really?
Queries 2D.
Yeah, that's when your second eye went, yeah. But you flew through the windscreen at about 70 miles an hour, landing on your head once more, and you skidded on your face for about half a mile, but you know what? When you came round, my God!
The impact of the accident had revived Stewpot from his state of paralysis, and in doing so gave us one of the greatest frontmen the world has ever seen.
He stood up, really slowly.
Murdoch remembers.
His back was still towards me, and really slowly turned around like one of the zombies in those films he watches. And there were no eyes, just two black holes, a vacant stare. Oh, it looked great. A blue-haired, black-eyed god. The girls would go wild. I knew I had it, but you were still a bit mental. But I had my front man. Despite the mess and the fact that half your face was hanging off, I could see that the girls would go crazy for his pretty boy looks. So I made him the gorilla singer. Yeah.
How could you not?